So the next two kits are the Boston Fern Trio Kit and the Mini Fern Kit. So they both use these adorable, gorgeous Boston ferns in really sort of miniature versions and in two different types of pots. So we have the grey Helena kind of scalloped, single scallop pots in 10 centimetres. They're just gorgeous, really good. Even if you don't have a plant in there, for styling shelves and things like that, just adding sort of another texture to your sort of shelf styling. And then the other kit is in the resin dipped pots, which is where Hello Petal began. It was the pots that we used when we first started the kits. I do get quite a lot of messages and people asking me to bring them back, so we do every now and then sort of add them to our collection. So I'm going to pot up that one now because it's a pot that you might not have seen for a while, if at all. So let's begin. So in your kit you'll have your gravel, compost and two different types of moss, your 3 little plants and obviously your pots. So start by dividing the gravel in between the 3 pots. And I'm just going to pop the plant on top just to kind of weigh up where I want it to be. I'm just going to add in a very small amount of compost on top of the gravel, just sort of like a, you know, not even a handful, a very sort of small amount, just a sprinkling. And then I'm going to take out the Boston Fern and place it on top of your compost. Now it's worth noting that you might find that you have some sort of dry, sort of brown leaves in the middle of the plant. This is completely normal and you can take them off or you can leave them on. It's purely sort of like a sunlight situation where there are leaves in the middle of the plant and they're not getting as much sunlight, so they go brown. I promise you it doesn't mean your plant's dying. So if you don't have any brown leaves when they arrive, and then you get some, you know, in a couple of months' time, please don't think that it's died. Keep going, don't give up on it. Just take those brown leaves out if you want to, and it will sort of grow new fronds, and you can tell that. And you can see one just there. So the new fronds are kind of like a long sort of like a stem that's got a sort of curly bit on the end. I don't know how else to describe it. Kind of looks a bit like a snail. It doesn't look like a snail, don't worry, but it's green and it just kind of goes like this at the end. It's a really lovely excuse me, thing to see, actually, just seeing all these new fronds sort of wrapped up, and then they'll unfurl you know, as and when. So it's a lovely kind of thing to watch and see. So I've popped the plants on top of the compost, and now I'm just going to kind of infill with the rest of the compost. So you'll have this in your kit, and basically you just add in the compost around sort of where the space is, in a nutshell. So you can be, you can be obviously be gentle, but you can hold, you know, your fern to the side so that you can fill it in, and then just gently kind of push that down, and then adding in the next one. Ooh. And this is exactly the same for the grey trio. Excuse me. You might not need quite as much compost because they're slightly, by about a centimetre, just slightly not as wide. And then you can start to add on top of your compost your moss. They look gorgeous. So we have two different types of moss. We have the sphagnum, which is the sort of dried two-tone one, and then the sort of woodlandy one, which is the flat moss. So all you need to do is just sort of break up little bits and then just place those sections on top of the compost. You can allow it to sort of trail over and drape over the side of the pot if you want to. So just popping little sections. Ooh, sorry, heavy-handed. So in terms of looking after your Boston ferns, your mini Boston ferns, they like to have their soil kept damp at all times, so don't really allow them to dry out. Don't sort of water them too much so that they're waterlogged, you know, because they don't really want to be sat in sort of, you know, an inch of water, because that will lead to root rot, which is probably why people do sort of kill their ferns. They probably overwater slightly. So there's a kind of fine line between keeping the soil damp and waterlogging. So I would, if it's because they're smaller pots, I would water little and often. So I'd water them sort of every 3 days perhaps, give them a little trickle and then leave them for another 3 days, little trickle, then leave them, and they should be lovely and happy. They like indirect sunlight, which basically means you can keep them anywhere in your homes apart from a south-facing window, because that will scorch them. But yeah, that's all they need. And then if their leaves sort of in the centre go a bit brown, you can snip them off with some scissors or secateurs, or with your fingers, pinch them off with your fingers to keep it looking healthy. And that's about it. And that's exactly the same for the other trio. So those are your mini Boston Fern trio kits.